So, this weekend also brings two movies about how two comedians get along with their dads. The first is About My Father, which will get some considerably more mileage, having cast Robert De Niro to play the dad. Sebastian Maniscalco co-wrote the script based on his own life, tracing his Sicilian roots before going into just how difficult it was growing up with his frugal, opinionated old man, Salvo. Salvo, an immigrant to this country, believes in hard work and cheap living, which is supposed to be the pitch of this culture clash comedy, where Sebastian and Salvo are invited to meet the parents of his would-be fiancée, Ellie, played by Leslie Bibb. They are rich McMansion people who buy expensive antique furniture, have a peacock for a pet, and actually spend leisure time playing tennis. They include a senator mom, played by Kim Cattrall, a born-to-money hotelier dad, played by Succession's David Resch, a frat boy son, played by Anders Holm, and a new agey younger son, played by Brett Dyer. De Niro scowls and harumphs his way through much of this. It's not one of his better comic roles, as he continually asks what things cost, looks on at people enjoying themselves with distaste, and speaks his mind. He plays the man unapologetically, though, and thankfully doesn't feel tempted to force some dirty grandpa crudity into this mix. The scenes that work in this movie are the more dramatic ones, where Salvo looks upon Sebastian embracing the lifestyle of his in-laws as an indictment of his own values he tried to impart. Salvo sees this as sort of an abandonment by his son, and he fears it will lead to losing the one thing he has left. Unfortunately, the rest of this movie is trying to be a comedy, and in that, Maniscalco forces things too much while neutering several more. There's a lame sequence where he has a panic attack in a helicopter. The rich people family members are all caricatures who come off way more embarrassing than Salvo ever could, and there's something regarding the peacock later on which kind of comes out of left field and makes this movie way darker than it was previously. There's also a lot of middling surface level humor about the lifestyles of the rich, much of which has been done better in other movies, and the whole idea of the culture clash just limps along. Maniscalco seems to know this, and so he desperately falls back on crude humor, also lame, of getting hit in the nuts with a tennis balls, and also losing his swim trunks and getting into a compromising situation with the family yacht. He ties all this up with a no-duh idea that parents are always going to embarrass their children, children are always going to take their parents for granted, but at the end of the day, nothing is more important than family. Right. But in a film like this, some actually funny jokes wouldn't hurt. That's why I'm going C, guys. The other comedian is Bert Kreischer, who supposedly has a bit where he whips off his shirt on stage and tells wild stories, one of which is a train robbery he supposedly took part in while in Russia 20 years ago. Is it true? Who cares? Revisiting it looked like a funny idea for a movie, but movie title and Kreischer persona, the machine, doesn't translate into a coherent movie at all. Directed by Peter Atencio, the movie is toneless, rhythmless, completely unaware of where its jokes should come from, and a complete waste of talent from Mark Hamill, who plays the dad in this movie. It imagines Kreischer playing himself and his father being pulled back into an internal rivalry between a family of Russian gangsters. During his possibly fictional train robbery, which he did during a semester abroad in college, he stole a priceless pocket watch that the gangsters now want back. Only problem is, he has no idea what he did with it. What's funniest in the film, though, is the opening segment, which sees Kreischer trying to put his comic persona in the rearview mirror, only for his new prickly persona to drive his family nuts. Living with a wife and 3 daughters, he's struggling with that, with sobriety, with guilt over his past, and his role as a family man. That's a whole raunchy sitcom right there. Moving the action to Russia, the film seems less sure of where the joke should come from. We get a bunch of Russian stereotypes, then there's a fish out of water flashbacks of Bert, played by Jimmy Tatro, ingratiating himself to the country's people by being a drunk ass. Then there's also the father-son stuff involving Hamill. Some of this should be funny, but it isn't. How do you set a film in Russia, yet come up with nothing that even comes close to satirical material? Most of the time we see Bert and his father just reacting in shock as the film gets all the more gory and bloody. Tatro, who is a funny, fantastic comedic actor who deserves much better than this, is underutilized as this drunken buffoon. Supposedly Kreischer is a legendary drunk, but we see none of that. Usually he just whips off his shirt and sings Limp Bizkit, which doesn't even seem that amusing 20 years ago. Maybe a bit, maybe 30. But anyways, it's not funny. We also get flashbacks to the actual train robbery, which for some reason seems to unfold as if the film is suddenly a thriller. There are betrayals and regrets and all kinds of things that make us look on just sort of confused. Isn't this supposed to be a comedy bit? What's happening here? And the stuff between Bert and his father is so derivative and lousy. At times it seems like Hamill is just trying to pull the old man out of being a caricature himself, and he's mostly just failing miserably at it. His pacifism, his carpet business, all seem like bad sitcom jokes. And once we see this guy doing Molly with some strippers, it's hard to take him seriously. The movie's afraid to go for any kind of jugular, usually falling back on tired fat guy jokes. At times I wondered if this movie was meant as a comedy at all, or if Kreischer was trying some sort of dramatic acting here. Other times he seems like he's going for action hero. I mean, it's just an all over the place type of film, going from very stupid to very serious to just who the hell knows within a blink of an eye. Maybe people who really love this guy and understand his comedy will find more out of it than I did, but this whole thing seems like an experiment gone horribly wrong and unfunny. Almost like a vanity project for a guy who hasn't even done nearly enough to deserve vanity. That's why I'm going D plus, guys. But that is my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know down below there. Also, if you could, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. I hope to see you back next time. I thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.